3 years ago, I remember this decision causing a lot of buzz. In hindsight, guys, NXT 2.0 worked. NXT Black and Gold was on fire. Let's not get it twisted. Bobby Roode going to the top and being the glorious one was something special. And Shinsuke Nakamura being NXT champion and hitting his once-in-a-generation entrance, maybe looking back at it, the entrances really were good during this time. But Charlotte, Hideo Itami, and Blue Pants were all fantastic. It's easy to see why the fans were in love with this brand and the reason it reached the heights it did. Eventually though, the WWE decided it wasn't new. Debut the new logo, set, and wrestlers, and a lot of the fans were super excited, but a lot of the fans were skeptical. The show they loved and cared about so much was getting rebooted, and it was a complete opposite of the brand that was before, or at least until the matches started happening. The new set looked entirely different than before. The setting was bright and it looked really white. And this is like the second video I just rhymed something. I like this. It's not even on purpose either. You know, this was like 3 years ago, but I'm pretty sure you guys remember the set, right? Most of you guys. The colors were like white. There's pretty much every color. The stars were new. A lot of the stars were coming out of like school and stuff. And then now there was a different crowd. There was like new fans. There was even a section where it was a university. And pretty much these new stars were introduced. So let's look back at the moments that were created. There were a lot of new athletes like the Braun Breakers and all of them, but there were also some of the people that have been around for a long time. LA Knight was still around. Johnny Gargano was still around. And Tommaso Ciampa was NXT champion. And pretty much Braun Breaker was on the rise and soon started a program with him. There were also other superstars like Tiffany Stratton. And bro, I just saw this segment for the first time. It is so funny.
You were quite literally the worst person of all time.
Not funny because she was being mean though. I'm not condoning that. Her character during this time was a spoiled brat. Vignettes started airing where she was shopping. She was like driving Lamborghinis, and soon enough she made her debut. Her debut was honestly something that was very different than what she is now, but you can see how she's progressed over the years and it's like really great. She was a really, I would say, well-rounded character, and she put on banger matches and then also had some viralities that really stand out. Like pretty much like less than 2 years later, she was already like NXT champion. And yeah, I feel like this is an example, one of the first examples that, yeah, you know, this system is working. But also, speaking of the new system, there is a new system. So the new system was like they were only focusing pretty much on college athletes, but they were recruiting still independent talent like Carmelo Hayes. Grayson Waller was also recruited, and he was like a high school teacher before it. Now, like 3 years later, we're seeing all these people on the main roster. Carmelo Hayes seems to be pretty confident in his abilities even before NXT 2.0. LA Knight was still in NXT, bro, and he has so many rivalries that are like, I don't know, I feel like if he had him today, they would be so much bigger. He faced Gunther in a pay-per-view, and he also went up against Grayson Waller in a rivalry. And I think it's cool that you can see LA Knight, like origins of him. You can see glimpses and pieces of the LA Knight that is today. But his debut was like over 3 years ago. It's Trick Williams, a former college football player who also tried out for the NFL. And pretty much during this time, I remember the big thing with Trick was his promo. He was like known for having great mic skills, and he would say it too. He said he had the gift of the gab, and the guy that a lot of people had their eye on was Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker obviously had the family origins. He also actually played in the NFL, and he was an amateur wrestler. Braun's attire, his singlet was similar to the NXT logo, and like 3 weeks into his run, he was already in the NXT like conversation with Tommaso Ciampa, because Tommaso Ciampa won the NXT title on the debut episode of NXT. They teamed up together, Tommaso Ciampa and Braun Breaker, and they took on Pete Dunne and Rich Holland. They won that match, and before you knew it, Braun Breaker was already like in the main event scene. He was in the main event scene pretty much almost all of his time in NXT. I just listed all of these names that you guys are now probably familiar with, but it's been like 3 years, a little bit over that. So how is NXT impacting WWE today? So Tiffany Stratton debuted this year, or honestly, they all did. And honestly, I would say they all made a pretty big splash. Carmelo Hayes is like the guy that's bothering He's like bothering people, I guess. And like, he's always pretty prominent though on SmackDown. He's usually stealing the show with Andrade, and he's doing pretty great so far. Braun Breaker, he's IC champion. He's out here, you know, feuding with in the main event scene. And Tiffany Stratton, she's missed Money in the Bank. Trick Williams, another big name. I would say he's probably one of the best characters in WWE right now. And he just has, from Booker T double-living his entrance to the entrance itself, he's a really pretty complete character. I feel like Tiffany Stratton is bound to win a women's championship. Probably, well, she only has a few months to cash in. She's cashing in on Nia Jax, right? Melo and Braun are probably going to be in the main event picture for a while. I don't know if this is like 100%, but I feel like these four are the biggest stars to come out of 2.0 so far, at least. And I just feel like it's been doing a great job. 2.0 just took some getting used to, but in hindsight, the change was absolutely necessary. The reason I say that is because even though NXT 2.0 was like different, it just felt different. And then I realized like this is a lot better. You just look at the roster and there's people from everywhere, from college, from different sports. You got people from acting. It's like the potential is there. There are people there that have been wrestling already for like 8-10 years. There's so much potential. If the goal of 2.0 was to start making new stars, I feel like it would definitely accomplish that. There have been some specific characters, moments, and storylines that I really want to talk about. Trick Williams is now a breakout superstar, but there was a point where he was teaming with Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes was pretty much everywhere. He started from the bottom, he made it all the way to the top, but there was always potential in both of them. Trick Williams was always getting credit for his mic skills, and this translated to the story. They were always helping each other out. Trick Williams hit, Dexter Loomis with his shoe to help Melo get the win one time. It came to a point though where Trick wanted more for himself. He wanted the North American Championship. Besides the tag team championships, by this point, Carmelo Hayes pretty much won everything. NXT during this time was mostly, I would say, represented by these two. So Dominic Mysterio was champion at the time, and Trick went after him. At No Mercy 2023, Trick became North American champion for the first time. Dragon Lee was the one who counted the three. I'm rhyming today. And Trick was backstage celebrating with Melo. The two were at the mountaintop of each of their divisions, but Melo, shortly after that, lost the NXT championship. The story started to turn into who was going to turn on who. Soon, both men were without a championship. A lot of times, well, you guys know what happened. Someone win the North American Championship, right? They use it as a stepping stool. Maybe they might defend it a few times, but then once they get rid of it, they go for the NXT Championship. So Trick was naturally one of those guys. He was eyeing the NXT Championship. The storyline progressed to the point where they both got attacked. Who done it? Well, it turns out, like you probably expect, it was one of them. Which one was it? Melo faked his attack, and pretty much Trick Melo gang was over. Now, onto another really strong place in NXT, the women's division. Roxanne Perez. She got signed to WWE when she was only 20 years old. She's now 23. So she's like college age, and she's a two-time women's champion. She's won the tag titles, and she's been on the main roster. So she's now a heel, but back in the day, a couple of years ago, she was like the happy-go-lucky babyface. They call her the Prodigy, and it helps out that Booker T was her trainer at some point. So Booker T really seems to be helping out. Braun Breaker was the face of NXT 2.0 for a long time. He was NXT champion twice. He went up against Dolph Ziggler. He was pretty much going up against Tommaso Ciampa and everybody else. He went down to the tag team division, and he won the tag team championships, and then eventually he left NXT. Now, some of those, they're segments of NXT, but what we're about to get into is some of the best episodes. Instantly, what comes to mind, John Cena's NXT episode. John Cena pulling up to NXT was wild. His backstage segments with Trick and Melo advanced the story even more. This whole show was just on another level. There is one match that I really want to talk about, and that match is one that really set the standard for what 2.0 was going to be. It's the War Games, new gen, Carmelo Hayes, Braun Breaker, Tony D'Angelo, and Grayson Waller versus the old gen, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, Pete Dunne, and LA Knight. This match really showed off the stars of the future, and it honestly wasn't even just the new guys. It was like LA Knight too. LA Knight and Pete Dunne, like, these guys are on the main roster now, and like they're killing it. LA Knight is really on top of his game. He's United States champion. He's like in the main event. He's doing great. This match really showed off what all the new stars could do. Braun Breaker breaking that padlock. The new time was ushered in. The last thing I want to get into in this videos come to an end, guys, is the commentary. Booker T on commentary, dub-living Trick Williams' entrance just adds so much to the character. I feel like he also, like I mentioned earlier, trained Roxanne Perez. He's always like hyping her up and stuff. Like, this commentary team is great. And then him and Vic Joseph are always arguing and stuff about like what's right, what's wrong, who's right. Vic Joseph is always kind of like roasting Booker T because of his like wrestling school and all that. And then Booker T has always been naturally funny on commentary. When Wade Barrett was on commentary, when Beth Phoenix was on commentary, it was dope. When Booker T is on commentary, it's dope. I feel like they just really zoned in and locked in on this commentary. Commentary adds a lot to the show. Like, all right, guys, this is the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I love you guys. And what do you guys think about NXT 2.0? Well, I guess it's not NXT 2.0 anymore though. It's more NXT just because it's here to stay. It's the original now, and they're building new stars. They're doing it. They're recruiting college athletes from acting, from all these different things, but they're also recruiting indie talent stuff. So what do you guys think? I think it's a lot better. Love you guys. Peace.